looking at the three very important issues. So one is gender and land and about disaster. So how can I change to the next slide? Oh, okay, here. Okay, right. Sorry. Okay, so the focus of our book is about how gender discrimination in the entitlement of land is actually creating more vulnerability for women under disaster. And then sometimes a very well-meaning effort to mitigate the effects of disaster for women actually creates more difficulty and weaken women's claim for land. So this is a kind of nuanced area that we wanted to look into in order to understand how these three dimensions intersect. So the first is why land and disaster. So as Jonathan have also said, land is a productive asset, but it's also a very important source of security, status, and recognition. And then many times, disadvantaged people do not have a very strong claim to land. In a post-disaster situation where there is a lot of chaos, there has been a lot of land grabbing being reported. So that is a very important area that we need to look into, how land holdings and land tenure changes with disaster. Especially in many of the developing Asia, when much of the land is not being registered, so that makes the land tenure much more vulnerable. So gender and land tenure is quite a very well-known discussion that we have a lot of literature around this. So women do have much less claim for land because of the patriarchal inheritance practices. Many women are not able to inherit land as much as sons. Or because they do not have access to credit, they will not be able to purchase land under their name. Or because the social norms do not allow women to hold land, or they do not have the decision-making power in the household to reclaim their land. So, especially for women, the usufruct rights is very important. For forests, they go and collect non-timber forest products. These are very important resources for women. But then since the usufruct rights can be exercised only when you're using the land. In a post-disaster situation where you cannot use that land, and then many often the people do lose their usufruct rights. So that is another problem. So gender and disaster. I think this is quite well known for you. Women, especially the poor women, are vulnerable under disaster because they have less resources, they have less connections, they have less social capital. So both economic, material, and social capital, they have less. Also, relief organizations can make the things more difficult because often they see women as pure victims, just beneficiaries of the assistance that they give, rather than a contributor for reconstruction. So that kind of gender-blind response can put women in a very marginalized and weak position as during the post-disaster period. So then we get together the gender, land, and disaster all together. And because of the women's insecure land title, women's dependency on men, they have weaker claim for the resources, as well as having the weaker livelihood option. So this creates vulnerability in that disaster, which leads to women's invisibility. And this is exacerbated by the community and also disaster relief agency, as well as government effort in terms of post-disaster recovery. So these are the kind of discussion that we are doing throughout this book. And then this book also has 6 case studies that illustrates all these gender dimension in disaster. So one case study is from Malaysia, where Carol Young and Vi Ekpan have discussed about how these indigenous people, the Iban people in Sarawak, have fought for many years against the oil palm plantation. So the land has been taken away. So they have been doing a lot of campaign and movement in order to get their land back. So with all their effort, they were able to get the land back. However, when they were able to get the land back, the men who were in the position of decision making, they have decided to keep the land as an oil palm rather than bringing it back as a forest land. So that makes it very difficult for women, because women actually wanted the forest back rather than having the oil palm. So even if they were very successful in getting the land back from the oil plantation, women are still deprived of their access to forest, which again makes their position much more vulnerable, again made very much vulnerable when another disaster strikes. So this is one way that even when, because women are invisible in all this effort to get back the land and also contribute to a sustainable livelihood of the people, they are sidelined from the whole land and disaster discussion. The second case study is about Sri Lanka. So in this one, what the case highlights is that how the gender-blind resettlement program, even when they are very well-meaning, that they want to resettle people from the very risky area to a safer area, because they have ignored the woman's claim to land, the traditional woman's claim to land, that has made women's life more difficult. So in this area, the land in the area was traditionally owned by women and inherited to women. However, when the government wanted to resettle these people, they gave the new land under men's name. So now women are very reluctant to go to this new area, even though that area is much safer, because they do not want to lose their traditional rights to land. So they keep on staying in this very risky area that is where it is very landslide prone. So again, this shows how the gender-blind disaster management programs of the government can make women in a much more risky position than before. The third case study on the West Sumatra, Indonesia, also shows how gender-blind programs have led to marginalization of women. So in this area, what happens is that again land belongs to the clan and not the individual. So and then many times the holder of the land was the daughter, and then the guardian was the eldest brother. So it was very much of a clan-based land ownership system. However, after the flood, when this area was affected by flood, what the government did is that they have started to record the land. But then when they record the land, they use the eldest brother's name as the former owner of the land. So all this traditional inheritance system, the clan system of ownership, have been ignored, and the lands have now been recorded under the men. So what this is not only that the land's name is recorded under the men, but the government also used this land ownership record for further assistance and compensation for flood loss. So basically, because of this kind of intervention, they were not able to, the government program have marginalized women and deprived them of the land rights that they used to have. In the case of Ladakh in India, in this area, what happened is that this picture shows how this place looks like. As you can see, it is a very steep slope. So people are living in this area, and many of the Buddhist women are having some land claim there. However, this area, as you can see, is very much landslide prone. So the government is keeping this as a tourist area, but then they do not really consider women's land rights over this area or have any consideration for the prevention of disaster in this area for people who are living here. So the total neglect of the government leads to women not being able to move out of this area and then live in a very risky situation. The fifth case study is again in Sri Lanka, the coir mill of here. In this area, it talks about, this one is the happy story in one sense. The post-tsunami relief effort have focused very much on the men's livelihood. So there was a lot of support for the fishers, for the boats and the nets. But women's livelihood was totally neglected during this time. So what happened is that women came together and started to do their own group business on the coir mill, coir production, which was a traditional woman's livelihood. And then so they had to overcome a lot of challenges like lack of supply or competition with imports, but then they were able to come together to overcome that without any government support whatsoever, because the government was not really considering women's livelihood as a post-disaster, post-tsunami program. The last case study kind of put everything together and then described how the land loss have led to vulnerability of women in the face of disaster. So this is the whole very brief discussion or introduction of our book, and then I hope that you'll be able to have some time to go through our book as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kyoko. Do we have questions from the classroom? Yeah, in the classroom now we have probably 5 nations, from Australia to Nepal to Myanmar and Solomon Islands, and I'm not really sure where you're from, but yeah.